It seems to me that in spite of any claims that religions make about revealing truth, their explanations always boil down to one answer: God did it. The Catholic Church, in the face of unassailable evidence of the Big Bang, are now claiming that their God is responsible. How flimsy the virtue of faith turns out to be in the face of evidence. Although I don't really see why, with all the other bizarre stuff, they expect the faithful to believe that denying the Big Bang would somehow be a step too far. But for reasons of their own, rather than rely on faith and stick to the 7-day story, they look at the evidence of the Big Bang and say, God did it. This is pretty much in character for a religion that, when they see something they can't deny or destroy, or that just happens to be lying around handy, they claim it as their own, whether it's the winter and spring festivals, virgin birth, resurrection of the dead, or even the Big Bang. What baffles me most about this is how people are fooled by such obvious trickery. Although the rulers of the Catholic Church claim authority by way of their hotline to God, they seem to get their explanations of how the world works wrong pretty much consistently. Even when they try rigging the game and claiming that their spirituality is less about the how and more about the why turns out to be shrouded in the mystery of their God's unfathomable plan. So in effect, they explain nothing. And this is, I think, at the root of my rejection of any proposal that science and religion can coexist. I really don't see how they can be compatible. Science attempts to explain how the universe works based on what we observe, predict from those observations, and how closely those predictions match subsequent observations. The usual rule of thumb is that the simplest explanation or model is taken as the most likely. Science is expected to provide consistency between what is observed and what is predicted. As soon as something is observed which violates the predicted outcome, then the theories behind that prediction are revisited and reworked until a better, more accurate model is produced. If you add God into this equation, then science pretty much unravels. If God is omnipotent, then it has the ability to control every particle and photon in the universe. The orbit of planets around stars, all Newtonian mechanics, the behaviour of electrons, protons and neutrons in atoms, chemical reactions, all of these could be the result of direct intervention by this God, creating behaviour that appears to conform to a set of natural rules, but is, in reality, simply the will of a being with superior multitasking skills. We're told that fossils are put there in the geological record by Satan to fool us, or by God to test our faith. With an omnipotent God, every flame, every breath, every drop of rain that forms and falls, every wave on a beach, every snowflake that ever was or ever will be, could all be designed and constructed manually by God in such a way that it just appears to comply with a set of natural rules. That worldview is not one that can ever be compatible with science. It renders scientific discovery impossible. It gives rise to a world of unreason and inconsistency where any attempt at understanding is an exercise in futility. A world where the only truth is what God wants it to be, and those who control religion, of course, would have us believe that they're the sole conduit of that truth. This view has the potential to turn the whole of reality into a worthless fabrication where our thoughts and actions are not our own, where free will is not only irrelevant but impossible. It gives voice and lends reason to a dangerous mindset where everything is the will of God. You have no responsibility for the outcome of your actions because those actions are not yours. You're simply a puppet whose every move is controlled by the cosmic puppeteer. Even your thoughts and feelings and hopes aren't your own. They arise from external manipulation. Your sense of self is an illusion designed, built and executed by the Almighty. But this model of the world is incompatible with morality, sin or justice. How can someone be against God when they're controlled by God? Where's the free will in a universe controlled by an omnipotent being? So we have to dilute that a bit and go for a universe where God doesn't do all of it, but just part of it. So how then do we identify which parts? Can this omnipotent being override the physical laws of the universe and perform acts of real magic? And surely by definition it must be able to, otherwise it wouldn't be omnipotent. If the rules can be disobeyed at any time, then what use is the quest for any knowledge when it can all be undone at the whim of the all-powerful Creator, or simply be a phantasm? For me, the idea that God did it makes no sense when you start to question it. Which is probably the point. You're meant not to question it, but to take what's given from authority and then simply obey. And for that reason alone, I say we should reject religion. When I was a kid, I was one of those annoying kids who always asked why. I was extremely curious about the world around me. I read huge amounts. I took things apart to see how they worked. I questioned the reasons for what I saw in the world around me. And on the rare occasions when my parents reached the end of their tether and said, "Because I say so," I always thought it was a feeble answer. Decades on, I think God did it is similarly inadequate. When a religion is happy to accept scientific explanations where solid scientific explanations exist, and the evidence is pretty much undeniable, such as with electricity, the orbits of planets and stars and galaxies, the way that medicines work to cure disease, then subsequently exploiting uncertainty in scientific knowledge by claiming credit for their God strikes me as opportunistic and dishonest. The Catholic Church's claim that their God was behind the Big Bang is based on nothing more than fancy and wishful thinking. Put simply, if the Big Bang was a natural event, then God wouldn't need to make it happen. No God was necessary. If the Big Bang was not a natural event and required violation of natural laws by God in order for it to happen, then any scientific research is meaningless, and consequently any quest for truth is undermined by the potential for the whole of reality being at worst a lie and at best inconsistent. And if science is meaningless, then why bother hitching your wagon to it? The trump card that science has is, of course, that it is consistent, not a claim that many sets of Holy Scriptures can make. If you don't have a solid explanation for something, then to say God did it in an attempt to fill the gaps actually explains nothing. It's simply a placeholder until a valid explanation comes along. Surely it's better to say, "I don't know," than to issue a statement that adds nothing to the sum of human knowledge, other than perhaps to shed more light on the irrelevance, ignorance and hubris of those who made it.